It will be a big miss for them. Don't get me wrong. On the field, he's a big performer.
Around 30 million quid, we understand, will get him out of Brentford.
And it's hotting up big time.
Oh, goodness.
That feels a bit of a two fingers to Chelsea fans as well, doesn't it?
You're watching and listening to Transfers Exposed. I'm Will Pugh, and alongside me, as always, is Sun Sports Deputy Head of Sports, Dean Scoggins. This is your exclusive press pass to the hottest transfers across the entire summer. Deano and I are here every Tuesday and Thursday, bringing you an inside look on all the facts, figures, contract lengths, and wage negotiations. And Deano, there is another twist in the transfer saga of the summer. Viktor Gyokeres at Sporting Lisbon on the back page of today's Sun, written by our man in the Northwest, Ken Lawrence. Scandi drama, slot ready to join Gyokeres fight as Toon plot record Isak wage deal. And this is Liverpool weighing in to the Gyokeres fray alongside Manchester United and Arsenal. Yeah. Huge stuff.
It is, and it's hotting up big time.
It's hotting up. The merry-go-round, there's hijacking.
Well, you had saga in there as well. Exactly. We did talk about the saga of the summer being this one
Transfer
last week.
Bingo.
Yeah, and look, Gyokeres, it was, 100% he's going to go to, this was a fan's view rather than a journalist's view. He's going to Man United because he's going to join Amorim. It's the only place he wants to go. No, now it's Arsenal. That's the man he wants for, the big transfer, the Champions League, take them to the title. And then all of a sudden, Liverpool joined the party. Now, I'm slightly concerned about what Liverpool are up to and doing at the moment.
Go on.
I personally think, and this is why we've linked these two stories together, is because clearly Isak...
The Alexander Isak.
Yeah, exactly. Clearly Isak, I don't know which way around we go, is the best striker that was in the Premier League last year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And he'd be the one that's top of everyone's list.
Obviously Hojlund will be, but
absolutely. His performances, I think he, if any player gets a sniff of Liverpool in their current state, title winners, going to go at the hard at the Champions League next year. They're going to want to have a look. He's not going to say that. He's not going to come out and say at Newcastle, I want to go. Yeah. They've treated him brilliantly well. The fan base love him. They're in the Champions League. It's a difficult deal to get done. But if you're going to start to smoke out a striker or a player out of somewhere, you start to get linked with other players in the same position, don't you?
Okay,
so I think look, I'm not for a second saying that they're not going to sign Gyokeres. They're interested. He's on their list. They're looking for a number 9. They're looking at the same type of profile, right? Big, quick, number 9 goal scorers, and it's right at the top of the list. But Newcastle need to act pretty fast and get Isak tied down to a new deal.
Right, so that's some nuts and bolts of this here. Isak on £130,000 a week at the moment at Newcastle. Now, the story this morning is that Newcastle are looking to make him the highest paid player in the club's history with a £200,000 a week deal, which strangely, even when you're talking about some of the other contracts that exist at the moment, and Burmo could be up to 250,000 with all his add-ons. If he does go to Manchester United, some of the big contracts, particularly with the money Newcastle have got in the bank, PSR constraints obviously stop them, but 200 grand for a player of Isak's quality still seems a little bit skinny. But I think with all of these things, Deano, right, and you've touched on it a little bit there, as we go through these stories, as the transfer window rumbles on, the key thing and the best thing to do is go, right, who would benefit from this story being out there in the ether? Well, Alexander Isak would certainly benefit from it. His stock is as high as it's ever been in his career, and he's going to have, it looks like, an offer on the table from his current club where he's very happy and performing very well, and Champions League football on the table, and his name linked with a club like Liverpool. Now, because obviously earlier in the window we said Liverpool looking to break the British transfer record and eclipse what they paid for the 116.5 million they paid for Florian Wirtz to go after Isak. Newcastle, though, we said were digging in and want 150 million. So where obviously the Arsenal Sesko stuff still going on, lots and lots of plates being spun.
Yeah, there are, and as I say, you've absolutely nailed it there with all the profiles of players. Okay, manager says, coaching staff say, we want this profile of player. Yep. Scouting network numbers men, analysts go and say, right, these are the players identified. They go through that process, and of course, Isak, Gyokeres, Sesko, these are the guys that come out. Don't rule out Yoane Wissa in this from Brentford as well. There's players around.
Not quite in that league.
No,
fair.
not quite at that level. But from a numbers Premier League goal scorer, look, I know you don't quite put it. You don't. You're right. Put him up there with those names. But so these biggest clubs want the biggest names, and so of course they're going. There's no way that Liverpool, if they're being very honest about it, are going to say, of course we don't want Gyokeres. That he's in the mix. Yeah. These strikers are all in the mix to improve the squad. But
they want Isak.
Yes,
don't they?
I think number one
target,
and they obviously, if they don't get Isak, they won't say that publicly.
No,
but
sure,
they want, that's the number one target. But if he's Newcastle's player, he's been good as gold so far. He's not kicking up a fuss. He's very happy up there. He loves the club, and it would only be, it's sort of, obviously he's not a homegrown player like Harry Kane, but it's sort of like that Harry Kane scenario of, I'm very happy to stay, but if you get the valuation that you've given and the club accepts it, then why wouldn't the player look at his options? So in this sense, it's the right way round. It's not a player like Pascal Chimbonda with a transfer request in his sock, right? So it's
that's the second time in 2 weeks.
It's my favourite transfer story of all time. But so look, and Sesko you mentioned. It's a bit of fun this morning where it seems he's now followed Arsenal on all their social media platforms, and so has his agent started following all the fan accounts. So it's pick me. In
the days of the social media era in which we live now, that is huge news, isn't it? Not so. Not only that, this is my favourite bit, Deano, as well as Sesko following Arsenal on Instagram, and his agent also reported to have followed several independent Arsenal fan accounts, news accounts, that sort of thing, like news aggregators. But this is my favourite bit. Meanwhile, Sesko's barber has posted a snap of the player getting a trim on the Greek island of Mykonos alongside the caption, "We hope to have you in London from this winter."
Unbelievable.
If that's not confirmation that deal's been done, I don't know what it is.
Stuff, it's the funny world of transfers. But look,
they are all linked though, aren't they? These things?
Absolutely, they are linked, and I think we'll get almost a domino effect.
Which is the first one? Because Mbeumo's kind of linked, but not really.
Mbeumo they're edging closer to Manchester United. Yeah. So if Mbeumo goes there, then look, I'm not ruling out Gyokeres to United as well, but it seems like he wants Champions League football first and foremost, which is fair enough, right? But I think the domino effect could come if Isak signs a new contract and Newcastle are just saying flat refusal, he's not going anywhere. Yeah. That means then Liverpool look elsewhere. That means then Arsenal know where they stand in their striker hunt, and then so do Manchester United and Tottenham. So the whole thing sort of moves along from there.
So if we say at the moment, then I think this is a reasonable summary of where things are at. If we say that it's Mbeumo to Manchester United, they're haggling over the final £1 million or two.
I still think Newcastle and Tottenham can come into that later on, but it does seem Mbeumo wants to go to Man United, and as long as United get to the fee first, we could see a medical in the next few days.
Well, Martin Blackburn writing that in the paper this morning, he's just waiting for the green light on the fee. It feels Mbeumo wants that move, and I appreciate it could later be hijacked. But so if we assume that one's going ahead for now, assume, as we have always been led to believe and told at Sunsport from sort of sources close to and within Newcastle, we are not selling Alexander Isak for a penny less than 150 million. So assume that's not going to happen. He's happy to sign a new deal. He stays. Arsenal, it does appear, and a bit more quietly, but kind of appeared that they want Sesko first and foremost, and if they can agree on a fee, although it'll cost them more up front, a younger profile, of course, 4 or 5 years younger than Gyokeres, followed him on Instagram, huge news. So assume Arsenal get that done. We say that's done. Gyokeres, he's kind of burned his bridges at Sporting with all the row that's
he's not going back there.
He's certainly not going back there. So therefore, if Napoli get Darwin Núñez for 42, 45 million, as we're led to believe they are keen to do, looking like they're going to spend a bit of money, Napoli, this summer, then is Gyokeres to Liverpool? I know we started by saying it's maybe a ploy or a transfer trick from the Reds just to sort of get up Newcastle's nose a bit. Actually, Gyokeres, because then if you've got Liverpool United to choose from, do United end up missing out completely?
But they could.
Don't get...
Absolutely, they could. And there's another way of looking at that as well, which, because of the talks that are going on literally now, this week, this next couple of days. If Liverpool do get that 40+ million for Darwin Núñez, which, let's be honest, the Anfield fans will carry him to Italy if that's the case, and then they can get some money for another player. Harvey Elliott's been talked about, the under 21 hero from this week. Harvey Elliott has been talked about as a sale as well. If
Brighton, I think.
If all of a sudden Liverpool can generate 80-90 million pound in sales, then are they not going to go and put 150 million on the table for Isak? So then this goes back to the beginning again. So I think it's very difficult for us to be sort of playing fantasy football here and moving players around until the first big deal gets done, and then the dominoes happen. But as you say, it is quite dramatic that this morning, as you say, Ken Lawrence's story, we then all of a sudden put Gyokeres in the Liverpool sense. But if Isak goes from Newcastle to Liverpool, would you rule out Gyokeres going to Newcastle as his replacement?
Well, yeah, he's quiet. So I can't quite decide whether Gyokeres is going to have nowhere to go and he's going to end up at
I think he's going to have some options.
But all of a sudden, you're kind of sort of losing track of or it's hard to keep up with.
I'd be absolutely shocked, given what we know about the agent, the player, and what's going on at Sporting, and we know his value, that if he's not a Premier League player.
You know what does tickle me with all this, though? I think the first story that we splashed on the back page of The Sun was probably a week or two ago now about Gyokeres. It was the strike story, right?
Yes.
Threatening to go on strike in order to force through his dream move to Manchester United or Arsenal. Yeah. I just already can't wait to read that.
Premier League move. Dream Premier League move.
Exactly,
I think he hasn't played in the Premier League yet, don't forget.
Gyokeres is like, there's not enough nights in the week for him to dream about all of the different clubs he wants to go to. But
absolutely. But great drama for all of us to look at.
Absolutely. While we're on Liverpool, Deano, Marc Guéhi, confident of landing. The story being they're confident of landing him Liverpool for 35 million quid. Newcastle and Chelsea are also keen. This is another one. Liverpool fans aren't going to like you this morning. That you're going to pour cold water on.
I'm not pouring total cold water on it. I just think
lukewarm.
A little bit. Yeah. Marc Guéhi has to start wherever he goes this year in a World Cup year to be in that England squad. And Virgil van Dijk is quite a man to shift from a team. Perhaps he plays with him, but I think Newcastle are ahead in this race so far.
Well, they've had a long-standing interest.
Absolutely,
they
tried to get him in January.
And last summer, Palace demanded too much money.
Yeah, I still think the most likely destination is Newcastle. I think it's a lot of money to pay for a centre-back who would go into the reckoning as a group of centre-backs, not your guaranteed starter. And for him...
Whereas he walks into Newcastle's team.
Absolutely, with their injury record in defence and then a great defensive coach, exactly. Plays every game and is then right back in the reckoning for Tuchel, because don't forget what Tuchel has said, you've got to be playing to be in my starting 11.
It feels like, Dino, the title for this YouTube video can just be Liverpool trolling Newcastle in the transfer
market. It does feel a bit like that, doesn't it? Yeah,
Liverpool, Newcastle's transfer
But it's
trollers.
fun when a team is being as active as Liverpool are, isn't it? Especially on the back of a title win. And as I said at the very first episode we did, be afraid of
Absolutely.
Liverpool.
Yeah, Jarrell Quansah as well. Looks like he's going to be going to Leverkusen to link up with Ten Hag. We covered that on Transfers Exposed a couple of weeks ago now. So Liverpool, again, they're in a good position PSR-wise, so they can afford some of those players on the way in.
Yep, spot on. Exactly that. We have mentioned Arsenal, so we can now move on to number 2, which is a little bit more intriguing as well. So Arsenal need a striker, is all we've heard all the time.
So therefore, who are they?
So therefore, they're signing another midfield player. It's quite. Look, he's a good player. We're talking about Christian Nørgaard here. Back page of the Sun again this morning. Great story from Jack Rosser. £9 million for Christian Nørgaard, which to me is a bit of a snip. It'll be a great deal. Obviously,
why are they doing this, Steve?
Well, as Jack writes, they've already lost Jorginho, who's been playing in the Club World Cup, and Thomas Partey likely to go as well. So we know that they're going to get Zubimendi across the line eventually, around about the £50 million mark, 51, I think, for the 26-year-old. And so Arteta, it is a running joke. We need strikers, and we're signing more midfielders. And don't forget, if they do get a striker, Kai Havertz can play in midfield as well.
I don't think you say it's a joke. I don't think think Arsenal fans are laughing anymore.
No, well, maybe it's everyone laughing at them, but that's okay, isn't it, for now? I'm sure they'll prove us all wrong this year, and then it'll be gloaty Arsenal as we go through. But they'll get a striker. They will get a striker in this window. But yeah, this is a good. I think this is a good deal. He's only on £40,000 a week at Brentford. Only.
Yeah.
But,
he's struggling to get by on 40 grand a week.
But let's be honest, move to Arsenal from Brentford, great move for a player like that. I was shocked at his age. He's 31, which I didn't realise, but proven Premier League player, be a really good squad player for Arsenal when you've got lots of games this season.
2 years left on his deal though, £9 million. Brentford fans talk about him in the most glowing of terms. So £9 million, like you say, seems like a good deal. Just quickly, we've said there, Thomas Partey looks like he's going. That seems to change week to week, day to day, month to month. We write again in the paper this morning, Mikel Arteta has been badgering the Arsenal hierarchy to extend Partey's deal. Partey's valuation of his importance in that team based on last season's performances. To be fair, he's sort of gunning for a contract that makes him one of the highest earners at the club. Arsenal chiefs are a little bit reticent at the moment to do that. Obviously, the interest in Saudi kind of never goes away. I was listening to the radio on the way in this morning, our News UK colleagues at TalkSport, and Harry Symeou, was very respected Arsenal broadcaster, was quite furious about the situation. He said, particularly if Partey leaves, but Norgaard, very good player, he said, these are his words, Arsenal are in a worse position, particularly in midfield this season, and if they don't get a striker over the line, than they were last season when they fell short again. I know it feels like a good deal, but where do you make of where it leaves Arsenal?
I'm not sure they're in a worse position.
If Partey goes?
Talks have been held with Partey over an extension, but what a player wants at his age and what a player is likely to get is another thing.
32, Partey.
So what? A player of his, his ability and, star performer in the Champions League and Premier League last season alongside Declan Rice. Right. But and so important to the way that Arsenal did play, but he's going to want a 3-year deal, and a 3-year deal on, north of £200,000 a week.
True.
And there's no sell-on value for Arsenal. And that's the world we live in now, the world of PSR and the world of clubs knowing that the contracts have got to be worthwhile at the end. So look, it is a tricky one, but it does strike me that Partey and Norgaard are quite different, so we really shouldn't compare them that closely. I would think Norgaard is sort of there to take a bit of pressure off Odegaard and Rice in the more ball playing positions. And look, Thomas Partey, if he's getting big offers from Saudi Arabia, and then he can say to Arsenal, well, you need to match this, we're probably in a position there where Arsenal aren't going to. Yeah. It will be a big miss for them. Don't get me wrong. On the field, he's a big performer, and we absolutely know, Declan Rice does not want to play as a 6. Dec wants to be an 8 and play in that position and more attacking, get in the box more. So losing Partey is a loss for Arsenal, but Zubimendi, Merino, they've got players who can do it. And look, I don't rule out Miles Lewis-Skelly playing as a holding midfielder as well in the future as well. He's quality player.
Dino, I give you grief all the time on Tactics Exposed during the season about your inability to use players' surnames and only using their first names. It's not just Declan, he's now Dec. We're now calling. We're now on nickname terms with people. Arsenal also close to doing a £5 million deal for Kepa. Adequate backup there, fits the mould quite nicely.
Feels a bit of a two fingers to Chelsea fans as well, doesn't it? When they paid so much money for Kepa in the first place.
Now you mentioned this next player just before we move on. You mentioned this next player a couple of weeks ago on Transfers Exposed, and as one to keep an eye on going under the radar, Yoane Wissa. While we're on the Arsenal Brentford section of the show, Yoane Wissa. You at first said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Tottenham deal happens, particularly if the Frank managed to get Mbeumo. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Thomas Frank's going to be keen to be reunited with some players who did so well for him at Brentford. It seems like Brentford, along with Bournemouth, are kind of being raided by some of the biggest and best in Europe and England. Just where do you think the Wissa situation lies at the moment? Around 30 million quid, we understand, will get him out of Brentford.
I think he's amazing value at £30 million. And again, when we talk again about the striker merry-go-round and the movements of those, he's one that the deal wouldn't be, again, a bit like Mbeumo, where United are getting closer to Brentford's valuation, and as we understand it, more negotiations today. And with Wissa, it won't be that difficult a deal to get done. If you match the club's valuation, Brentford are not the sort of club who are going to stand in people's way if their valuation is
if
met.
The money's right,
they're unbelievably good football model that they've got.
Totally.
Buy players who have got potential and then make profit. And meanwhile play great football, win games, good atmosphere, great new club. They're a joy, Brentford, and in every way. But Wissa is. Look, if Tottenham sell Richarlison, if Arsenal don't get one of the Sesko or Gyokeres deals across the line, if Newcastle lose Isak, if Liverpool think, we don't get the number one target, let's have a backup striker. If Manchester United are in the market for a 9 because they don't get one of the big boys done, Wissa is in that reckoning, and the Wissa camp and Brentford are very aware of that. There's not been an actual bid on the table yet,
sure.
But I still think that's one to keep an eye on, and I think if Brentford start the season with Wissa in the team, then they've probably had a bit of a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, they need to cling on to some of their players, don't they?
Yeah,
lots of chat.
They had some injuries in attack last year, though. They have, and we know full well they'll reel out another £12 million Brazilian South American signing, a bit
it'll
like
be Scandinavian, it'll be another Dane.
Yeah, who then kicks off the Keith Andrews road model, and then they'll be away again, and in 12 months' time we'll be talking about him going somewhere
for 50 plus million. Deano, Manchester United, we'll just do a very brief bit on this. This is more 2 players who look likely to leave. Obviously we know United's pursuit of players in those forward positions already landed Cunha, and Mbeumo looks like at this stage could be, or is likely to be done there. The Gyokeres stuff, as we've already covered, but they will have to make room, particularly on their wage bill, not just in their dressing room, and players they are keen to try and get off the books. Obviously we know about Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, and this another one on the list of players that they're open to offers to this morning is Rasmus Hojlund, with Napoli and Inter Milan both keen. Napoli are going to be such a key cog in lots of Premier League stuff. This sort of Premier League
I love it. I love it from Napoli because they know how much money they've got to spend, and they are actively investigating all these transfers. We spoke about Garnacho, we spoke about Grealish.
Garnacho's the other one.
They're and now Hojlund as well.
And Nunes, of course, Darwin Nunes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that they know what their means are. They're exploring what the best deal will be for them, and they're making contact over these type of players. I just got this really funny image with United in my head of Jim Ratcliffe with the garage door open at Old Trafford, and got sort of these players sat on a picnic table out the front trying to flog them,
price tags.
Rashford, Hojlund, and those got and as we mentioned, Garnacho, and they're just. Please come and take them and kick off our summer window. So, and then there's Jadon Sancho to talk about as well, which, Sancho, Mourinho keen to take him to Fenerbahce. That feels like an accident waiting to happen, if I'm being totally honest. Jose Mourinho and Jadon Sancho again. Look, would Arsenal come and have a sniff around Jadon Sancho to be the left winger like he played at Chelsea last year? Well,
to replace Martinelli.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hugely talented footballer, but that's not happened yet. I'm just being mischievous there. Yeah. But there's also, obviously, we've done the report suggesting that United proposing a swap with Juventus. With Vlahovic,
for
Sancho, which to me makes perfect sense.
Yes and no, but it does feel now Sancho is at that stage, given what's happened at Manchester United. Dortmund have sort of made it clear they don't want him back. He feels like he's fallen, not quite as intensely as this, into that Dele Alli kind of era where he's like huge money. His performances no longer warrant the money that he wants. He doesn't obviously, or not obviously to be fair, but he doesn't want to take a pay cut at this stage in his career. As soon as you start hearing teams in Turkey linked and sort of and in Italy, not necessarily the very, very top teams in Italy as well, not that Napoli and Inter Milan, of course, aren't huge sides, you kind of suggest, it's because there's a lack of
I
interest.
don't think you're being harsh at all.
At the top level?
I said this the other day about the talent of some of
only
these
25
players.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's interesting with the Mourinho link, because I think with him you'd say, well, special once, right? Not the special one. And like it is frustrating. But look at the Man United, the Rashford, Greenwood, Sancho were the absolute golden generation, or should have been, for the new era of Manchester United, and obviously for a variety of reasons that we won't go into, that hasn't worked out for all three, and it is a terrible shame. But now Manchester United are in this position where they have these assets that they need to shift.
Yep.
And if they can do a swap deal for somebody like that, get the big wages off the book, cut ties, fresh start, it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Vlahovic, I really fancy him in the Premier League as well. Right, Deano, we'll do, just very quickly, sorry. Rasmus Hojlund leaving, is that premature, do you think? Because I've heard sort of mixed things from you, and we've discussed him in the past.
There's a player in there.
There's somewhere. A player in there. Is Manchester United the place? Do you think it's just too late now?
I just think
go somewhere else.
Think it's too
find your like mojo again.
Yeah, I don't think it's too late. I think he's clearly a quality footballer. It's Man United, and he was thrown in the deep end. It didn't work. It's not his fault they paid that sort of money for him. No, and also there are players of his age who haven't scored the goals that he's scored at that point. So it's not too late, but they're going through a change process. Yep. He wasn't an Amorim signing, and I think probably for his own sake and for the sake of Man United, a move this summer is the right thing.
Absolutely. Right, Deano, we'll wrap up as we always do with the quick fire 4. You can go first. We'll do 2 of these each, just deals to look out for this week.
Yeah, I think we're quite close to Ukrainian centre-back Illia Zabarnyi, 22-year-old from Bournemouth, going to PSG. Bournemouth getting stripped, as you said, losing Howson, potentially losing Semenya. Gyokeres is on his way to Liverpool, and losing Zabarnyi as well. Tough times at Bournemouth. Yeah. Bournemouth fans look away. I think
head in hands at the Cherries, for sure. 50 million Bournemouth want, and he's open to the move. I mean, open to a move to PSG. He'll get a significant contract there, but poor old Bournemouth. Manchester United, Everton, and Saudi clubs looking at Wilfred and Ndidi at Leicester. Deano, a £9 million reported relegation-based release clause for the 28-year-old after Leicester dropped down. Feels like a good move for anyone who can snap him up for that.
Absolutely, yes, indeedy, for 9 million quid.
Oh goodness! I thought we'd got through a whole show about one of those. Come on, let's move on quickly.
All right, move on very quickly from that. Man United scouts also looking at Palmeiras midfielder Richard Rojas. He's Colombian. We know that Spurs, Forest would also look to him. PSG have got a sort of link with him as well because of their scouting network. So 20 million quid. Again, be one of those that is probably a low-key signing, but in the current world at £20 million, good squad player. Yeah,
and it feels like Manchester City-esque. And last one, we've mentioned Newcastle already, Deano, but they are expected to make an improved approach for Anthony Elanga at Nottingham Forest after their initial £45 million bid was rejected. Do you think for that sort of money you're getting that looks
I like him.
At £50 million, say, that feels to me, I mean, I think he's a very good player. That feels like better business for Forest than it would be for Newcastle.
I'm not sure I agree. I think
if Mbermo's 60.
Yeah, but that's where the deal. What you mean that's not enough money for
50
that's
million
too much money?
Sounds a lot of money.
No, I don't think it is.
45
think.
million
I mean,
sounds...
he's probably, other than Mickey van der Ven, he's probably the quickest player in the Premier League. And look, the Newcastle Liverpool thing is we're coming back to the start here again of the episode. But if Anthony Gordon does go from Newcastle to Liverpool, Newcastle need a pacey winger. He's a guy who helped Forest into Europe this year. They had a great season. Yeah. Newcastle will go back in, and I think we might be talking about that one next week.
Well, that's it for this episode of Transfers Exposed, where we might as well have called the episode Liverpool Troll Newcastle in the transfer market. And to be fair, you never know, we might actually call it that. I'm Will Pugh. I've been joined by Sun Sports Deputy Head of Sport, Dean Scoggins. We're with you every Tuesday and Thursday on Transfers Exposed. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, let us know what you think of everything we've spoken about in the comments, and if there's any transfers you want us to cover as the summer rumbles on. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next Tuesday.